Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I'm very happy to welcome back Riz Story from Anyone. The album is finally out. Catch us up on everything that's going on, man.
Well, the album's out now worldwide, and I'm very pleased. You know, it's a double album, right? So we're talking about a lot of music. You know, the album is long, it's 2 hours of music. So it took a lot of work to get it all mixed and mastered and sounding the way I want it to sound. And it's complicated music, you know, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of textures and nuance to the mixes. So it took a lot of time. I'd just gotten back from traveling the world. I was, you know, hitting Fiji, Tahiti, the Philippines, the Palawan Islands, you know, making this underwater movie about the coral reefs and the oceans dying. And I had to fly back to finish the album because it wasn't quite finished. So I had 17 days really before the deadline that I needed to hit in order to get it out on time on August 30 or on November 30th, which is the release date. And so for 17 days, I did nothing 24/7 around the clock other than work on the album. And, you know, I was basically waking up, going to one end of my penthouse to the other, to the studio, working all day long, stopping only to eat. Then when I was falling asleep, literally at the console, you know, at the computer, I would just realize like, okay, it's 3 a.m, time to go to bed and get a couple hours rest, come back and get back to work. And that's how I basically 24/7 for 17 days in a row until it was finished. And so it's completed and I'm very proud of it. It's definitely an explorative, experimental album with a concept. And so it goes into some themes that are revisited from song to song. And yeah, I feel pretty happy about what I've achieved with it.
Now, if I remember correctly, you played all the instruments on this album, right?
Yes, yes, I did. Played all the instruments, sang everything, wrote everything, you know, produced, mixed, mastered, just made it by myself. The only other name on it that would have anything to do with music would be Jon Davison, singer of Yes. He sings some lead vocals on the song Symptom of the Miracle. And so he sings like the opening sections and I sing the middle section, then he comes back for the end. And I think that's the one song that you had heard before earlier.
Yeah.
He does an amazing job. He's got a beautiful tone, you know, very John Anderson-ish kind of vibe. And it's great to collaborate with him because he was there when Anyone got started. It was one of the original founding members, him and Taylor Hawkins, of course.
Right.
So we weren't called Anyone at that time. We were still changing names every week, you know. But that was really the essence of the beginning of Anyone, and some of those early songs still remain in the Anyone repertoire that I wrote together with Taylor and Wano. Dear Sylvia, from the first Anyone album, that was Wano's idea, his bass line, and a couple other ones, you know. So it's great to have him come back after all these years. Those were the early 90s, late 80s, I think, early 90s. And just to have him as a friend and to work together, and for him to be kind enough to take his time out from Yes, it's touring the world right now, to sing something for me. It's just really a beautiful gesture. So I really appreciate that, you know. The last album, In Humanity, was really the first dedicated progressive rock album.
Mm-hmm.
The one before that, On the Ending Earth, which I think I put out in 2019 or 2020, had some prog elements to it. Anyone has always had prog elements ever since the early days. But it was within Humanity, double concept album, where I really took it in a complete ultra prog, not just prog, but like extremely progressive direction. And so it was kind of a new beginning where I started kind of, you know, appealing to progressive rock fans, people who are like hardcore progressive rock people. And so that was the big turnaround. And now, like, I guess there's a whole new audience forming around Anyone that are people who are interested in, like, you know, longer songs, really sophisticated music, music with a theme, you know, virtuosity, that kind of thing. And it's funny because when I first started working with Taylor and Wano, it was like before that I was just doing a solo career, and it was very progressive. As a matter of fact, I made an album at that time. It was pressed to vinyl and everything. I was only 19 years old. So we're talking 1986. And I made an album called Self Portrait. I played most of the instruments. It was my first production. It was a full album. It was mastered by Bernie Grundman, who mastered Thriller for Michael Jackson, The Wall. He mastered all kinds of stuff. And so that album was never released. It was meant as a demo to get the major labels interested in me and to sign me. And then maybe we release it with them, but it was never technically released. But apparently this guy, who's an A&R guy for the Numero label. Numero is the top archival label in the world. They don't release anything unless it's been out for at least 30 years. The stuff that was never released, or stuff that was released in a blaze of obscurity and never got its due, stuff that they think is really worthwhile. And, you know, they win Grammys, you know, they're a big label. They've been around for, like, you know, decades. And so one of the guys found that album, I don't know how, you know, because like I said, we never released it. There was only, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred copies made. But he found a vinyl copy of it, contacted me and said, hey, we want to release this album. And, you know, from when you were 19. So there's that, and that's come out now. The first single came out on Thanksgiving. It's called Listen. The artist's name is Riz Story. But that album, when it comes out, you'll hear that I was doing progressive, you know, kind of music then. And it's when I met Taylor and Wano. Taylor was like, you know, you're never gonna go anywhere with this stuff. It's just too artsy. You know, the kids aren't gonna get into this. Yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're probably right. He's like, it's brilliant and everything. I love it, but, you know, we got to do something a little bit more, like, on the point in terms of just getting, you know, through to people and getting signed. And so that's when the band, I divide my career into two sections: the solo years, and then meeting Taylor and Wano and starting Anyone, the maximum acid rock band, you know, which was, of course, even then, very artsy, very psychedelic, kind of proggy, you know, just outside the norm. And now, and the idea that I told the band, I told Taylor and Wano, I said, we'll do an album, maybe 2 albums with songs, you know, and really, really get people interested and go big and, you know, be accessible and with songs and hooks. And then by the 3rd album, I want to take it in a completely progressive direction. I'm talking 20-minute songs and just out to blow people's minds. I want to take music to the next level, and I want to, you know, be the most experimental, the most artsy, you know, challenging band, just defining new territories, right? You guys down for that? They're like, yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a good idea. That's kind of what Rush did, and what Yes did. And so that was the plan. Of course, the plan never works out. You know, I released that commercial album on Roadrunner, and it did get 5 out of 5 in Stone, and it was really, you know, acclaimed, and it sold a lot of copies. But things kind of fell apart, you know, before we could get to that 2nd and 3rd record. It started, and then it got a little bit more progressive each album, and now since Inhumanity, it's been ultra prog. And I don't have any considerations about anything commercial. The accessibility, keeping it simple, putting in a, you know, a song there, here and there to keep people interested. I don't give a shit about any of that. At this point, I just love traveling the world, diving you know, with whales and dolphins, seeing the beautiful coral reefs. And if I'm going to make music, it's going to be music for me. It's, you know, the music that I hear in my AirPods while I'm out there doing those things. I literally make it for myself. I didn't even plan on releasing the last album, Inhumanity. There was no plan to put it out. It was Johnny Ransom, one of the ex-drummers of Anyone. He was right before David Silvera from Korn joined. And he said, you know, because I send him music because we're bros. He says, you got to put this shit out, man. You know,
Right.
he's talking about the Humanity album. I'm like, well, it's a soundtrack for a movie. You know, it's not going to come out until the movie comes out. He says, fuck the movie. What if you never make the movie? You know, this music is radical. You know, people are going to trip out on it. And you're playing all the instruments. And he said, not only should you put it out, but don't make it a Riz Story solo record. Put it out under the name Anyone and continue the legacy of the band. And started with Taylor and Wano. Wano is what I call Jon Davison, by the way, singer of Yes. And so he talked, at first I thought, what a buffoon. He doesn't understand at all. And then I realized, no, he's right, maybe I should do that. So I did it. And it was the smartest thing I ever did. It was such a turning point. You know, the Prog community, the reviews, you know, as you know, were extremely positive and numerous. There was many reviews, and they were all, you know, 5 out of 5. Just people really appreciated that album. And it gave me such a warm feeling to have that reception, you know, like, wow, like these people are really into it, you know. And it was that and the whole Herbie Hancock thing that happened to me.
Right.
Between the two things, I realized, you know, I got to do more. And so before the album was even out, really, before Inhumanity was even out, I was already working on the new album, Miracles in the Nothingness. And I said to myself, well, if they dig that, you know, I'm going to take it even further. Yeah, I wasn't even trying. Then, you know, people are tripping out on the fact that I'm playing all these instruments on a virtuosic level. So well, I'm going to really show them, you know. So on this new album, there's some stuff that really, you know, I don't know, pushes the envelope. There's a song on the new album called Evolutions. And it's just a piano improv that I did one night. You know, I'm smoking a bunch of bowls, drinking some red wine, and I just press record on Pro Tools and just play. And it's so funny because I came back and, you know, I listened back to it. I'd been improvising all night. I was in such a zone. I was just playing these incredibly inspired moments. And I said, I better record this. So I said, you know, I'm going to record it now. And I did a take and I listened back to it and I thought, oh, this is terrible. You know, when I wasn't recording, I was like on fire, and now it sucks. You know, now I can't capture that magic. Well, I put it away. About a week or two later, I listened back to this piano improv, and I was like, oh my God, what was I thinking? This is really perfect. I don't want to change anything. I didn't change a note on it, and it's extremely complex, and nothing ever repeats. You know, it's an improvisation, and I couldn't believe that it was so structured and so balanced, you know, and that there were no errors, because I'm playing 1,000,000 miles an hour. And in places, there's other very subtle moments. But I ended up putting some bass to it, the vocal, some, you know, some keys, and, you know, just basically filling it out with instrumentation, some electric guitars. And, but I think that and some other moments on the album are extremely sophisticated, complex. I don't know what word I would use, but it's music at a level of sophistication that exceeds even Inhumanity. And so, you know, I'm very pleased with the expression and the depth of the expression that I was able to achieve on this new album. And I think, you know, I want to keep pushing. It's funny because I just finished the album the other day, and already I'm thinking about, like, what can I do to really blow people's minds, you know? Because that's what I enjoy doing. I want to take music to a new level, like King Crimson did, like Yes did. You know, when Yes came out with Close to the Edge, or when they came out with Topographic Oceans, I mean, it went over everybody's head. Topographic Oceans to this day is controversial. And the reason why is because most people just don't get it. That's just too much. You know, we're talking 4 20-minute songs, and, you know, they went into some zones that were just extremely experimental and extremely sophisticated, you know. And of course, they went on to do Awaken, The Gates of Delirium. And those are my inspiring bands who really pushed music for the sake of music, And of course, you lose a lot of audience. You know, the Taylor Swift fans are not going to get it. You know what I mean?
To say the least.
But I don't give a fuck about that. I don't care about any of those. You know, like I said, I'm making it for myself and sharing it with the prog scene, because I believe the prog scene is where other people like me dwell. You know, those guys are still listening to, you know, In the Court of the Crimson King, which was like the first progressive rock album. They still listen to it faithfully. They love music, you know, pure music that's trying to take things to the next level. So that's where I'm at, you know, just pure expression, pure art. No, there's no company now, you know, telling me like to write a single. There's nobody saying like, dude, are you crazy? You're gonna put out an album that's 2 hours long? Who's gonna listen to a 2 hour long album? So I don't give a shit. You know, maybe they'll listen to one disc one day and then the other disc the other day. I don't care how they, you know, digest it. It's there for them. So having released 2 double albums now in a row that are both extra long albums, because Inhumanity was 140 minutes and this one's basically 2 hours. So that's basically like I released 4 albums. You know what I mean? It's basically 4 full-length, full long albums in the last 2 years. You know, just in the last 24 months. I'm going to release another double album soon. And so that'll be 6 full albums of music. Because again, I'm trying to just get it out to the people now. I've realized that sharing it is important. I remember when Moving Pictures came out by Rush. You know, I was in high school and they were my favorite band at that time. And when I heard Moving Pictures, it sounded like the brightest, clearest, modernist recording I've ever heard. The Fi was incredible. They had all these synthesizers and sequences, and it just sounded modern and futuristic. Power Windows was another album they made, where it was like, well, this is next level. You know, all these sequences and synthetic backdrops and things were very new. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm combining everything that's new, you know, on the very cutting edge of synthesizers and patches and sounds, and using the most modern stuff and trying to even experiment with that and take it to the next level. I mean, imagine hearing Dark Side of the Moon when it came out. That was like space music from the zone, you know? And even now, actually that album really, obviously I don't need to, you know, sing the praises of Dark Side of the Moon. Stayed on the charts for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Can take lots of audiences because it's such a masterpiece of forward thinking. You know, even though it's quite simple musically, just the sonic textures and the depth of the emotion and Roger Waters' lyric themes. You know, the guy was one of the greatest lyricists, and he always had something to say that was potent, you know, pertinent and meaningful. And I'm doing the same thing with this album. It's a concept album. You know, it's not just a collection of just random jams. Every song is kind of exploring a different angle of the theme of the album, which is miracles in the nothingness. You know, this album, the last album was a soundtrack album for a movie. And although it was very philosophical and had a lot to say about humanity and the collapse that we're currently involved in, it wasn't just like, this is just an album with a concept. Miracles in the Nothingness talks about, it's a meditation on being alive. You know, it's so funny because most people, they never really stop to think about, like, you know, what the fuck is going on here? We're on this little dust grain planet floating through this borderless expanse at 20,000 miles per hour. We're on this little dust grain in this borderless expanse of black of space. Nobody knows where we came from, how it all started, how life started, how this little dust grain came to life and was covered with trees and fish and birds and insects and us. And just what a miracle, just what a surreal psychedelic acid trip twilight zone adventure of a miracle that is, just to exist, just that you and I are, that we exist. And then it's so beautiful as well, you know. And that's why this album, it was so influenced by the places that I've been, you know, because when you get on a boat and you go to a private island, not a private island, but let's just say, because nobody owns these islands, you know, Fiji has 333 islands, you know, many of which have no people on them. But when you're out there and you're in nature and it's warm and beautiful and crystal clear water with sharks and stingrays coming up to you and the coral reef, and then you swim with whales in the afternoon. I was immersed for months and months and months in this like primeval beauty of the tropical islands that I visited. And I traveled all around. And I'm going right back out too. You know, I came back to finish the album, do a little promotion, then I'm going to go right back out. I'm heading back out in another few weeks. I won't be back. You know what I mean? I don't really like the vibe here in America right now, what's going on. So this is divisive, it's such negative energy. So I'm going to go back out. But this album really has that. You can feel the influence of me being in those places. There's a song that ends the album. It's called The Ineffable Bliss of Being. And it's just marveling at just what a trip it is and what a beautiful experience it is to even exist. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's the backdrop that we exist, and it's this beautiful miracle that no one can really comprehend. I mean, they have their ready-made stories. They have their myths, their religions. Science is trying to pick away, you know, oh, maybe lightning hit, maybe there was, you know, panspermia, you know, maybe we were a little microbe that came in on an asteroid and we evolved from there. There's evolution. We can pretty much know things evolve. But nobody can explain anything. Nobody can explain the origins of life, the origins of the earth, the universe, nothing. And, but while you're kind of meditating on the beauty of that and being blown away and awestruck by that, there's also the fact that the setting right now is one of total decline, and that, you know, we have a total collapse going on. Nature, I was born in the 60s, you know, mid 60s, and since I was born, 50% of life on Earth has disappeared. The biomass is what the scientists call it. So, you know, I was born, there was this much life on Earth, and now there's half that. I'm talking insects, birds, trees, fish, microbes, life. There's half the life on Earth. So it's in a collapse, and it's called the extinction event. This is the 6th extinction event. So there's a song on the album called Extinction Event. And it talks about, you know, it delves into that. So it's not just this butterfly in meadows celebration about being alive. It also looks into the fact that we're ruining it for ourselves. There's a couple songs on the album that I wrote like in my early 20s, many, many years ago. And another friend of mine that used to play with me back in those days, Christian Cunningham, said, you know, you should, some of those songs that you wrote back in the day, you know, when we were kids, you should revisit and work up because they're timeless. I was like, do you think so? You know, I'm like, which ones? You know, he's like, My Name Is Forever. That song was always just, you know, so progressive. And you know, nobody would be able to tell that you wrote it that long ago. It's timeless. So I did. I brought that one back. The Ineffable Bliss of Being is from that period. And there's a song on there called Someone, which I also wrote. All those songs when I was 19, 20-ish, right after I finished the self-portrait album that I told you is coming out. And and then other songs were just written just, you know, like last month or whatever, you know. So the songs were written over a long period of time and then collected into this progressive album of concept, very concept. And you notice when you listen to the lyrics, there's a lyric page on the official website. You can see all the lyrics for the new album and all the lyrics for the last album, In Humanity. But if you notice, if you read the lyrics, there's themes that come up over and over again. Mm-hmm. Themes of independence, of daylight and what it symbolizes. The word traces, I say probably 100 times on this album. There's themes, and they come up from song to song. And, you know, they're all developing this idea, you know. And it's just me expressing kind of my 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 perspective, you know, my experience of being alive. You know.
So what is your website?
AnyoneDen.net is the website. AnyoneDen.net, and there's a lot of it's really the ultimate 81 kind of cachet of everything that's ever happened. I mean, there's a few things that aren't accounted for on there, but for the most part, there's you know, links to the albums, there's lyrics, there's a ton of press going all the way back to, you know, when we first came out, and pictures and a fan page, you know. So it's a good place to just spend a little time getting to know the band. There's a bio page, and I just try to lay it out so that if somebody's really into it, they can spend a few hours, because there's a lot of pages. You know, you can really learn a lot about the band. There's a whole page dedicated to Taylor Hawkins.
Is this going to be available on digital only, or you got it on CD, LP?
Yeah, well, the albums are available on all the digital platforms, like 250 of them, you know, all the big ones, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, whatever. But there's CDs, there's physical CDs, and they should be available in another couple weeks, a week or two, through Just for Kicks Music over in Europe is going to be handling the CDs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to carry all the Anyone backlog. But to be honest with you, I'm having a hard time supplying, you know, keeping up with the orders. Every time I do an order, I'm like, okay, there's 100 CDs, you know, this should last a while. And they just sell out, you know. And then I'm in Fiji, you know, on an island in the middle of nowhere. It's not like I've got a big company here that's running the merchandise. But it will be available on CD, and it's available everywhere just to hear the music. There's some new promotional videos that are on the front page of the website. So I'm trying to, everyone's asking for vinyl, everyone's asking for this and that and the other, you know. And I'm doing my best to supply Anyone fans with as much as I can in terms of goods. I mean, we don't sell shirts, I don't sell hats, mugs. I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it to be a store. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't do any of that. As far as I'm concerned, when the music's done and it's available in one form or another, my goal, my mission, it's complete, you know. But there are CDs, so look for those. And of course, the best way to be aware of what's going on is to sign up at the website at AnyoneDen.net. Just sign up, subscribe, you know, get on the list or whatever, and you'll be the first to hear about any new developments, CD runs that are now available, new albums, any kind of updates. So that's the thing to do if you become interested.
I will put the links in the description to make it easy for folks to find you. But Riz, man, thank you again for coming back on my show. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Well, thanks. It's great to talk to you again, and keep rocking over there, Kyle.
Appreciate you. And thanks to all y'all out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Hit that subscribe button for my regulars. You guys rock, because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.